I started these Belly Brave videos because I wanted to help people who were possibly just being diagnosed with stomach cancer and wondering what their future might be like. I found when I was looking for information, I didn't have a lot from the patient's perspective about what living with stomach cancer was like. You hear a lot about how are people diagnosed or how did they find out, but that's only a small piece of what ends up being a big piece of your life. So this video that I'm doing is a reflection back on this last year because it's June 2025. I got my stomach taken out in June 2024 and it's been a big year. So welcome to Belly Brave, 1 year on. A year post total gastrectomy look like? I'll start with physical changes. That's probably the easiest, and one of the most noteworthy is my weight. What's happened to my weight in a year's time? I mean, you know you're going to be losing weight after you have your stomach taken out. I went from, typically I was about 72 kilos, so it's about 158 pounds. I had bulked up to 77 kilos, so that's 170 pounds-ish? No, yeah, 170 pounds. And I had bulked up knowing that I was going to go into surgery. So I wanted to start from a higher platform. So went from 77 kilos while I had been normally 72. Now I weigh about 55, 56 kilos. So that's in the 120 to 125 pounds. So it's a bit of a loss, but I feel healthy. I'm a short person. I'm 5'3". So it's not necessarily a bad thing for me. I haven't plummeted to the point where I'm not healthy. I know a lot of people have really struggled with trying to keep their weight stabilized once they've hit a point. I've been really lucky so far, knock wood, it keeps going, that I've been able to say I don't really want to get below a certain weight, and I make a super concerted effort to eat a lot of really high nutritionally dense foods if I'm kind of getting to that point. So did I lose weight? Yeah, I lost a ton of weight. Is it healthy loss? Yeah, it's all right. You know, I can live with this. One of the things that I've noticed that's kind of linked to the weight loss is people going, wow, you look so good. And you know it's coming from a spot of they're saying something positive to you. I just say thank you, very simply. I don't necessarily tell everybody my weight loss was because of cancer. Sometimes I do, but I don't feel compelled to let everybody know, although I'm doing a YouTube channel on it, so figure that one out. But it's just, you know, if people go, oh, you look good, I just say thank you without getting into any kind of background. One of the positives of this is that I have gotten new clothes, which, so I mean, they're new for me clothes. They're secondhand, a lot of secondhand clothes, because I didn't know where I was going to stabilize. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on new clothes while my weight was still going on. Why that's funny is that I have clothes from, honest, 20, 30 years ago that I had worn. And I would keep wearing, because if it gets stained or if it gets rips, it ends up being gardening clothing, right? So this has been a bit of a trip for me, is getting a bunch of new clothes so that stuff isn't hanging off me. And I think I've stabilized now, so that's probably, I think I probably have gotten all that I need. Don't need any more. Hair, my hair came back really thick. That's the wild thing. It's like really, really thick. And one of the benefits that I had of going through chemo was you didn't have to do things like shaving your legs. Well, I've got to shave my legs again, which is probably too much information. But my eyebrows haven't come back, and I was thinking about getting them tattooed on. I don't know if you've gotten your eyebrows tattooed and you have any thoughts or guidance for me, please put it in the comments. I could use it. But 1 year out, my hair is back and it's thicker than ever. Nails took a long time. What happened is the chemo made them super brittle, and they would break like right underneath the white part, and sometimes really hurt. It would just peel off because of how brittle they got. But and they looked weird. They got a little like clubbed looking, but they've all kind of come back. I don't do anything special with my nails. I'm a gardener, so keeping them clean is about all I do. But was real happy that they're not splitting anymore a year after the stomach cancers. The stomach came out. Still on the physical changes, reflux. When I first got my stomach out, I would have a problem with bile reflux. If, for example, you're sleeping and sometimes you scoot down off of your pillow, I'd hit lying flat and would get that burning feeling. I've been really, really good in not having reflux. Gee whiz, I haven't had it for a long time. So I'm really very, very thankful for that. Still on physical changes, eating. Of course you're worried about eating because you're having your stomach taken out. And a year ago, I wasn't really sure what my progression would be in terms of eating. So, you go from a lot of soft foods to you're trying to build more variety into your diet. And as part of that, coupled with my iron had been pretty low, my husband had made me, I can't remember if it was pork chops or lamb chops, but he was trying to get my iron back up. Probably was lamb because the iron content. And I remember trying like 2 bites and being really, really conscientious about chew until it was like a paste. And I still got sick. That was a year ago. Fast forward to this anniversary, and for our dinner, it just by happenstance was lamb chops again. So I had one and a good bit of a second lamb chop, plus I had smashed cauliflower, plus I had some kale, and was able to eat that with no problem whatsoever. In terms of problems, a year ago, it would be kind of common for me to throw up at least part of my dinner. And I don't think that's too much information, because if you have stomach cancer and you've had your stomach out, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What can happen sometimes is you either ate something you shouldn't, that your body was just not ready for, or you ate too fast, or you ate too much, or you didn't chew enough. There's tons of reasons why I would throw up. And that happened probably about 3 times a week, that there was something I did wrong or something that just happened wrong and I ended up throwing up. Now, if it happens once every 2 weeks, it still happens. Year out, still happens. But I've got more of an awareness about what triggers there are or when to stop. And it comes because I made bad decisions that now I can make good decisions. And sometimes, like I said, it still happens. You can make good decisions and it still happens, and you just got to roll with it. I'm much more aware of what my trigger foods are. Still can't eat rice, which is a bummer, because my husband comes from a Chinese background and he's a fantastic cook. And so I would love to be able to eat more of the stuff that we used to eat, no problem. But you make adaptations. Like for bread, I can't eat commercially made bread. I don't know if it's because it's too fluffy or what. Can I eat sourdough bread that I made? Absolutely, no problem whatsoever. So now I know how to make sourdough bread. I make all the different sourdough discard recipes and follow a couple of people on Facebook who are fantastic bakers and have discovered a new hobby in making sourdough bread. Why? Because I can't eat regular bread. So sometimes things can happen for the better. Another trigger that I've learned in the last year, and this is such a weird thing, that if I'm at that point where I'm about to eat too much, my nose starts running. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know what the connection is between me filling up and my nose starting to run, but I've got that red flag. And so hopefully you'll get those red flags too, where you start learning what will set you off, and then you can avoid those situations before you get into any kind of strife. A year ago, I had to take a nap after pretty much every lunch. I would eat lunch like a baby. You know, you eat lunch, I get a full tummy, boom, I'd be out. I'd be out right on the sofa. Now, again, occasionally I have problems with my sugar being a little off, and if that happens, I'll need to take a nap. But a year ago, it was a 2-hour nap after every single lunch. Now, again, does it happen? Sure. Rarely. I'm lucky enough to have access to an academic library. And in this past year, one of the things I've started to do is a lot of research on supplements. I've got a PhD in a health-related field, so I felt kind of comfortable in dipping into the academic library and seeing what evidence existed for what type of supplements I should take. I didn't want to just be buying everything. Although if you look at this basket, it kind of looks like I've bought a little bit of everything. But some of this is related to cancer. Some of this is just related to I'm 61 years old and maybe I need a little help. So, you know, stuff like fish oil, stuff I just mentioned, iron. I take an iron supplement. I put this underneath my tongue. I let it kind of just dissipate slowly. A lot of sublingual, like taking B12. I'm going to be doing videos that get into the studies that exist about what supplements we should take if we've had a total gastrectomy. So I'm not going to go into all of them here, but you know, there are vitamins that are made just for people who had bariatric surgery. So didn't know that from the doctors. I mean, my doctors were great, but why weren't they giving me information on the need for vitamins? I don't know. But anyway, I'm an adult and I did some research and I'm very happy to share that with you in upcoming videos. In terms of drinking, I still have problems with drinking plain water, and that apparently is really common with people who've had a total gastrectomy. I can't drink plain water, but if you put a little something into it, you make it Gatorade or you make it an aloe drink, I have no problem with it. I have no problem in drinking it. The problem is that I want to decrease the sugar. So I started drinking Diet Coke, but you know, that's not the healthiest thing for you. I probably have way, way, way too much in terms of that. So what I want to move into is making my own chia drinks because they have that little bit of viscosity that allows me to swallow them with no problem, and they have protein in them. Do they exist at the grocery store? Yes, they do, but they're really stupid expensive. So that's going to be my next thing, is making my own chia drinks. I used to have a glass of wine with dinner, or my husband and I would share a glass of wine with dinner just at home. I find that I just don't enjoy it. I think having that knowledge that alcohol is a carcinogen just takes away me really just enjoying a little bit of wine. So if I'm not going to enjoy it, why bother? So anyway, I really don't drink alcohol anymore. terms of exercise, a year ago, I went to find somebody who knew something about exercise and cancer. And went to a guy, very nice guy, but he was giving me things like abdominal exercises, core exercises like bird dogs, for post-surgery. I mean, you think about that. How much sense does that not make? And he wanted to follow up with me for 2 weeks after my surgery to see how I was doing with the exercise. So I just, politely took the program, but of course never went back. And that's one of the things that I, now a year later, I'm thinking about going back to school and becoming a certified cancer exercise specialist, because I just found that there was such a gap in terms of exercise and in terms of nutrition to help people specifically who've had stomach cancer. So I'm thinking about doing it. I might do it. But in terms of exercise, it's just important to move. We need lymph in our body to move. We need it to get out the cancer cells. We need to prevent recurrence. And that's what's on my mind a year hence, is what can I do to prevent recurrence? So I try to go walking. It's winter in New Zealand now. Flippin' miserable time to walk because it's often, cold and wet at night. I just got to toughen up a bit. One of the things I found, and this is another thing that I found support for in the scientific literature, is this movement pattern called Qigong. It's Qi and then D-O-N-G, or sometimes you see it Qi-G-O-N-G. And it's a series of movements that's been found to help move the lymph around your body. I'll post a link to the guy I follow in the comments. So if he helps you out, then too, they're all free videos. They're on YouTube. I just found it. I feel good. I feel really good after I've done it. I've gone for lymphatic drainage massage, and that again has a basis in the scientific literature that it's good for getting the lymph moving around your body. From the physical to the social, work. Well, I burp, fart, and need to nap at a moment's notice occasionally, which isn't really conducive to working outside the home. I used to be a university teacher, and students would have a field day with that. I could just see showing up to a class and ripping one. So, I mean, that's the thing. Again, if you've had a total gastrectomy, you just got to start to almost laugh about it. It's so crazy, the sounds and the smells that your body can make. Has it gotten better in a year? Absolutely and totally. But it's one of those things where my heart goes out to the people who've had to go right back to work, and you're in a social setting. That's got to be very challenging to manage. So God love you on that. In terms of socializing, found that friends who we used to go over to their house for dinner, they're uncomfortable with asking us out over for dinner now sometimes, and that's okay. I get it. So we asked them over here for dinner, and can still go out to a restaurant, but I've had a couple of times where I've really struggled and had to hightail it to a bathroom while we were out at a restaurant. So what happens is I feel a little anxiety in going out. It doesn't stop me all the time, but I have to be feeling good to be able to go into a restaurant. I always look at the menu beforehand to make sure that there are safe foods for me to eat. And in terms of social, you look at your relationships with your friends and your family, certainly with my husband. And I have to say that going through a cancer journey has actually strengthened and deepened relationships that were that were there. And it's helped me forge new relationships. For example, I have two women. They're just lovely people. They both had to have their stomachs out because they had the CDH1 gene, and one of them had cancer found, and one of them did it preventatively. And it's not that we get together and just talk about cancer, but it's just nice to be around people who get it. So I've been blessed in terms of old friends who just have been a wonderful support. I've got a fantastic family. My husband has done cartwheels in terms of making our life as normal as possible in this year. And like I said, I've found that it's healing for me to be a support for others, and I've gotten a lot out of those relationships I've found with other people who've had cancer. From the physical to the social to the mental. A year out, actually last year, it sounds weird, but I wasn't in a bad mental state. The reason being is I didn't really have the time to be. You're going from diagnosis to a million different tests, and you're going to this doctor and you're going to that doctor. I didn't have time to breathe. And when I did have downtime, I was asleep. And so maybe that's a sign that my mental health wasn't that good, or maybe it was really good and that was being just protective. What I found a year later is that I get worried about little things that are probably just an artifact of being 61 years old. You get a cramp and you think, oh, what does that mean? Am I low on magnesium? Or your face flushes a little bit and you think, oh, gee, what, is that? And that's not a healthy way to be. I can't be always focused on whether every little pain or cramp or whatever is a sign that the cancer has come back. And that's something that, maybe in year one, I get worried, and maybe between year one and year two, I'm stronger with that. So I'm looking to improve in that area for sure. So what's changed in the year since I had my stomach out? Looked at physical changes, social changes, looking at kind of mental changes. Now I think in terms of spiritual changes. About, a year ago, I certainly was praying for my health, and I was giving thanks for my family and my friends who were praying for me. I drew a lot from that. I would listen to the occasional podcast. I was reading Christian books. What I found happened in the last year is that I pray constantly now. It's like I've got this constant dialogue going on with God in terms of prayer and thanks and thanks, gratitude. I mean, I've heard that a lot, the whole gratitude. I'm so thankful for every single day I get up. Just very thankful that God's blessed me with that one more day. And it might not always be this way, but it is for today. And for that I am thankful. So I pray a lot more now, and through the choices of the reading material I've had, what's been interesting is understanding more about how Jesus questioned God. He got angry. He asked for answers. I didn't really kind of understand that before. And now I'm comforted that if we look at for me, in my spirituality, is like looking at Jesus as a role model and understanding that that questioning happened. And so in this dialogue that I'm always having with God, I question a lot. I question a lot, not out of anger, more out of wanting to understand more about where I am and where I should go. So that's the year that was. June 2024 to June 2025. It's been a big one, and it's been definitely one that I've learned a lot from. So hopefully some of this reflection gives you a little bit, if you're having an issue, it sounds so little. If you're living with stomach cancer or you're supporting somebody with stomach cancer, know that you can kind of gather yourself together physically. You can find new strategies socially. You can get into a better mindset, and you might even grow in your spiritual journey. It might be very different than mine, but the idea is that things can get a lot better. And if there's nothing else I leave you with, it's that message. Things can be a lot better. So with that said, thanks for tuning in, and continue to be belly brave.